Alright, what is up, guys? This is part 2 of creating resolvers. Okay. Sorry I took so long uploading a video. But, so in this part 2, we're going to be focused on creating a user resolver and making the connections between the users and the notes. Okay. We're going to do that and then test it out and making sure everything is working correctly. If you haven't checked out part 1 of this video, feel free to do so. In the part 1, we worked on the notes resolvers, and we tested queries on that to make sure everything is working well on that one. So if you want to check out that part 2, go ahead and do so. I will post the link to it. It should have like a little info in the corner right now of if you want to go check out that first part. Okay, so this part we're going to go ahead and create a user resolver. Okay, now this structure might look a little different. The only thing I did was I reorganized all of the files. I put all the resolvers in a folder, and I made this index.js the main resolver container. So I stored all the resolvers here, and then I'm exporting this, and then I go to the server.js file here. Sorry if it's cutting it off. Hold on, let me give it a second. I imported it here and then put it as the root value for the resolvers. So it's all getting imported from the resolvers index, okay, the users and the notes, okay. So let's get into creating this user. The first thing we got to do is we got to bring in the model that we want to use to create this user, okay. So I'm going to name this user equals require let's see, slash, I think, model slash users, yeah. Okay, bring that in. And now what we're going to do is create user resolver. Why I keep making my S capital? Okay, it's going to be an error function. It's going to be a sync await. Yeah. So let me go ahead and do this try catch before I forget, because I always do. See, try catch with an error. Okay. We need to pass in the parameters that we need to use to create this user, and we're gonna pass that in with destructuring. So we're gonna grab the it's based on what we called it in our schema, in our mutations in our schema. We called it user input. So we gotta grab that whole parameter there. Okay. And now what we can do is now initiate a user. So const user, just make this capital, new user, this is referring to our model. Okay, we're passing in the data that goes along with it. Alright, so we have, remember it's based off our user models, so this is the fields that we need to import here. So we got the username field, and that's gonna be, well, that's gonna have the value of our user input dot username. Okay. Now we're gonna copy this like that, and we're gonna name this the email because we got the email field, and we got the password. Now don't worry about encrypting the password and all that stuff. We're gonna do that. We're gonna do that later on. We just want to make sure that we get this user created and get this working first before we dive into that. Okay, so we got the user created, right? Now what we have to do is save this user to the database, okay? And I'm going to store this inside a variable. So const, actually, well, I could do this. Const result equals await, and then user which is referencing this, dot save. Okay, you can see that method automatically comes up because that's from MongoDB. We're saving the document basically, and we store the saved document inside the result variable here. So now we can just return that result, return that user that we just created basically. Oops, return result dot underscore doc to get the document. Okay. I don't know if I said it in the previous videos, but you have to do dot underscore doc just to get that document. If you was to try to do this, it's not going to work for some reason. I'm not sure why yet. I haven't really learned why, but it'll throw an error. All right, so we're saving that document in the database, and then we're basically returning that data that we just created, which is all the user stuff. Okay, so let's test this out. Of course, wait, hold on. Let me do this error, throw error. So if we do have an error, go ahead and throw that. Let's test this out and see if it's working. If I haven't mentioned it, I got everything set up here. I got MongoDB, I'm already logged in. And I got the server going, the backend server going for this. And the, this is the regular server here, the backend server. And then I got the, well, I don't actually have the Mongo server. I don't think I have to have that started for it to work, by the way. But, anywho, we're going to go ahead and make this mutation. We're going to see if this create user functionality works. Okay, so we should create a user, and it should be saved in our database. So let's try it. User input. It's going to be an object with our fields in it. Username. It's going to be Jerry. I don't know. Email. Oh crap. Let's see. Jerry@mail.com. Sorry if it's cutting it off. Hold on. Make this wider. And the password is going to be 56, like that. Okay, so once we create this user, what data do we want to get back? We want to get the ID back, and let's say the username back. So let's see if this works. All right, we should see a user with all of our data in it. All right, cool. So it's working. So we got the data back, which we specified here. Okay, and let's see if it's in our database. Let me refresh this. Okay, yeah, there he goes. Alright, so we got that user, right? So the create functionality is working, okay? Let me go ahead and get rid of that real quick. Alright, so the next thing we have to do, that was the only user resolver that we had to create for the users. It's actually pretty simple. But now the next thing we have to do is we have to make a connection between the users and their notes, okay? So we basically have to like run functions to grab that and store that and return, well, not store it, but grab the data and then return that data, okay? Alright, so next thing we want to do is we want to go under notes. We're kind of done with users right now, okay? So now we're on notes, right? So before I start jumping in resolvers and getting the notes and whatnot, we want to know which one that we want to grab data from. Like we know the notes resolvers returns our notes data. But what if we want to grab the user who created that note? Okay, we would have to make that functionality. Okay, so we're going to start with that on the notes. Okay, so we're getting the notes right here. We're returning it, but we also want to return the user creator. Okay, so we're going to do user. We're going to name it. This is what we're naming it. Okay, we're naming it user creator, and then this field, or property I should say, is going to have the value of the ID of the user that created. Okay, so to order to get that user ID, when we create a note, we want to have a default user. Okay, just to see how this whole process works. When we create a note, we have a default user that has many notes in their array. Okay, so in order for get this working, we have to make it to where when we create a note, a user is assigned to that note every time we create it. Okay, so what we can do here is we can bring in the user creator field, because as you know, in our model we have that field right here, so it's referring to this. Okay, so our user creator field sorry, my voice is breaking. Yeah, so this user creator field needs to have a default user for this note. So we're going to go to our database here, and we're going to pick a user. I'm going to go with Jerry, the one I just created. I'm going to copy his ID, and then we're going to do, or wait, do I do it like that? Yeah, I think I have to hard code it like this. Okay, yeah, I have to hard code it like this. And then right here where it says it's saving and returning notes, not user data, but saving and returning notes. So the next thing we got to do after we, is it after or before? I think we can do it before. Yeah, before. Okay, so we saved it. Now we have to look for a user with this ID, which is going to be Jerry, but we have to look for that user, okay? Because if we was to go and create a note and get the ID of, if we was to go create a note and then try to query for the user creator, it's, if we query for the ID of the user creator, we're going to get the ID, but we're not going to get the data because it doesn't, this right here is just a string when we query for it. It's just a string that says the ID. It doesn't really mean anything. So that's why we got to get the user, okay? Hope that wasn't confusing. Sorry, my voice is cracking. So we're going to get a user by going const, we'll call it find user, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So we need to look for a user. So we need to bring in the user model because that's what we're going to be working with to look for a user. Goes require. So anytime we want to work with the user data or the node data, we got to bring it in basically. Okay, so we're working with the user data. Users, and then the const find user will be equal to await user dot find by ID. Okay, let me pull this down. User dot find by ID, and what ID that we want to find it by? We want to find it by this ID right here. Okay, that's the ID that we want to find it by, and then since we store that in a variable, we could check if there is a user with that ID. I think that's about right. So we'll say if, well, first we'll check it if it's not there. If we can't find that user, it's going to return, basically going to return an error. So we'll say new error. It's going to be user not found. Yeah. So if we can't find that user, it's going to return user not found, right? But if we do find that user, we want to access that user's created notes array. So we can do this by saying find user dot created notes. Yeah, so we have access to the user dot created notes because in our model we have the created notes, so we have access to it. Okay, so user created notes, and then you want to do a dot push, which is from MongoDB. MongoDB has a push method along with, it's similar to how JavaScript does it, where you can push the note that you just created to the user's array. Okay, so what we would do here is do note, okay, which is referencing this. So this note data is going to be pushed to this user's that we found, this user's array. Okay. Now, after we do that, then we'll do then we have to save this user. Okay. Let me see. Await find user dot find user dot save. Okay. So if you don't save this user, it will throw an error, I believe, because you always got to save what you find or create, or I'm assuming. Yeah. So let's just save that. That should. Okay, so now back to what I was saying. I almost got sidetracked, but I had to do that part for you to understand this part. Now, the user creator. So when we try to get access to the user creator of this node, we have to run a function to get this data. Okay. We can't just put the string like we did here because it's not gonna grab it. It's just gonna return the ID, but it's not gonna return the data that's associated with it. That's why we had to find the user here. Okay. So the function we're gonna create is called getUser. Okay. Now this function is gonna return the user data. Okay. So when we go const, we'll call this getUser equals whoop. Try okay. So the parameter this get user is going to take is the user ID. Okay. So whatever the user ID we pass in here when we call this function, so when we do get user, whatever user ID we pass in here is going to bring it in here and is going to search for that user and return that user's actual data. Okay. So what we're going to do is do, I think I have to do it in here, so I'll say const user ID, I'll say, yeah, user dot find by ID, which ID that you want to find it by, whatever ID we pass in the params, okay? Make sure I have to do a wait here, okay? and then we store that ID, store that user in this variable here, right? So then we can run our same if check if we wanted. I probably should do it for good measures, just to run the if check. So this time we'll say if there is a user, we'll just go with that. If there is a user ID, then what we're going to return is that data of that user. Return user, well, yeah, user ID, which is the user data. I should probably call it user data. No, I should call this user data, so you guys won't get confused with the naming conventions. User data. So you guys won't get confused with the user creator, which is a field in the notes. So I don't want you guys to get confused with that. So I'll just call this user data, and that'll be it's gonna call this function here. Okay, so once you get the user data, you should be able to access the username, email, and password. Okay, because we found the user by ID and we're returning its data. Okay. Let's see if that works for now. All right. Oh wait, well we do have to pass it in here, of course. The user data here, as you know, the notes model has our user creator, and our user creator is the ID. So we can just pass in the user creator ID. So we'll pass that in by saying note dot underscore doc dot user creator. Okay, so you're basically if you don't know like what ID are we actually passing in, it's in our notes model, and we're passing in this ID, which is the user ID. Okay, the user that we created, which is Jerry. Yeah. Okay. So that ID is passed in here. It goes in here. It finds that user, returns the user data. Sorry, my voice is terrible. Let's see if that goes well. I hope. Okay, so this is a query for the notes. So if we just grab the notes, say like we want the title of it. Okay, you get the title. Now the real test comes in when we do user creator. Okay. Wait a second. Oh, since this field's already in there, I probably do have to call it user creator. Well, let's just see if this works. I wanted to give it a different name, but the user data might work. So if I just do user creator and try to find the email. Okay, the email's no. Okay. So change this back to user creator, because this field is actually in our model, and when we call it right here, we're overriding this field to give it this data. Okay, so I guess it technically does have to be called the same name in the model. Okay, let's try that again. No. I don't have to save this user, do I? I don't think so. Oh, I see what I'm doing. Remember how I said I was going to throw an error if we don't do the dot underscore doc? I keep forgetting about that. Okay, refresh it. There we go. Okay, so maybe this did work. User data. Did that work? What happened? No? Okay, yeah. I do have to call user creator. Sorry, I just wanted to test that out. Okay. So this works. If we refresh it, it works, okay? So you're actually getting the data back. So what it's doing here is that this returns this method, but if you don't query for the user creator, it's not going to call this method. It only calls this method if you actually query for it. Now everything else you can get. You can get back the title, the content and all that stuff. And if you don't query for the user creator, it's not going to call that function, okay? It only calls it if you query for it. So that's the notes getting back the user that created it, okay? And as you can see, let me do it again so you guys can actually see what was the email. Now the email of this note should be Jerry because, oh, we assigned it Michael? Did we? We did it under Michael? We have Michael's ID? Oh, it must have been Michael's. Either way, we're getting back the data of whoever created this note. Okay, so that can be somewhat helpful on our front end, I believe. We'll probably query for that. Now the next thing we want to do is we kind of want to run the same functionality on different resolvers that we want to get either the user data or get the created notes data. Okay, so I think that's the next thing. So along with getting the user, right, and it returns the user data, we could get back, because the user ID doc is basically returning this. Now if we nest another object inside the user creator, which is the created notes, we're able to get that as well. So we won't just be returning the user data, we can also return the created notes that user created, okay? So that will be another thing that we return, the notes of the user, okay? So how we can do here is now the user, if you look at our model, the user model has access to the created notes, okay? So we have to override this field and pass in a function that gets the notes, okay? That's basically what we have to do. So we'll say created notes, just similar to like what we did here, but this is going to be for the created notes. Created notes, and that field is going to call a function to get our created notes, okay? So we're going to call this method or function method. I can call it get notes to be kind of the same with the get user. Get notes. Yeah, okay. Alright, so it's going to be nothing in it right now because we got to create the method. So const get notes. Okay. Oh, I'm doing it the old school way. Why am I doing that? Sync our function here, our try, and our catch. Okay, and then we're going to pass in a parameter of the node ID that you're trying to search for. Okay, so this method here focuses on finding the notes based on the user ID. Okay, so that's basically what this method does find the notes in the array that matches and then return that data. Alright, so then what we want to do is let's see, we want to kind of do the same thing we did here. Const notes ID is equal to note.find, okay, not find by ID, but find. So what you want to find, what you want to look for, and then we'll say we want to look for the ID of the document that matches, this is going to look weird, but it matches an array of IDs that have the ID that we pass in. Okay, so the ID that we find has to match the array of IDs. Okay, that's basically what it's doing. The ID has to match the array of IDs. Okay, and if we pass in like 1, 2, 3, 4 in here, that ID has to match an array that has 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has to find in the array 1, 2, 3, 4, and the ID of the document has to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you find that, then you want to return that data, basically. Okay, I hope that didn't confuse you. Then what we'll do is that shouldn't. Let me see. Okay, see, that is an array. Okay. Oh yeah, it's an array because it's an array of IDs. Duh. Okay, so you're gonna have to loop through this since it's an array of IDs. Okay. So once you find it, loop through this array of IDs. Oh. 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 Can't spell. That's a shame. I'm not gonna which one am I returning? This one? So once you find it, okay, yeah. We're gonna return this one. Notes_id.map, and if you find the note, this is what we want to do with that note that matches. Okay? You want to return that note that matches, right? So what we want to do is return that data, so note _doc. Oh no, not this. Don't do that. I wish I could spell it correctly. Okay, so once you return those notes, you're basically, yeah, so return the, okay, yeah. So you're basically returning those notes at this point. You're looping through the array, grabbing the ID that matches the ID of the document, and returning that document, okay? So now we have this function here, now we got to put it here, okay? So it takes in the note ID. So the created notes, the user has the created notes, right? So the user has access to the IDs. So what you want to do here is you'll put in user dot _doc dot created notes. Okay. See, now the created notes is the array. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, the created notes is the array here, and then you pass the array here, and then it finds that ID in the array of the database, and then loop through it and return that document. I think that's how the flow is working, okay? So then we're going to throw this error here to make sure it's not going to give us any yang about that. So let's see what we get. Oh, crap. Let's see what we get back from this. Wow, my prettier is not working. Alright. So let's see what we get back from that. So we know that user not defined. Hold on. Let's back it up some. So when we query for the notes, we get the notes, right? Why is it saying user not defined? Let me see. Query for the user creator, user not defined. Notes, get. Oh, okay. See, that worked. Okay, I see what it's doing. It's getting not defined. User is not defined because when we query for the notes and then the user creator, we call this function, right, to get the user. We get the user back, but no, wait a minute, that should have worked. Okay, hold on, let me put something. Let me, that should have worked. Let me check it. It's saying user not defined, so okay, let me try putting user creator. I'm gonna call the get user, and then we're gonna pass in the note dot underscore doc. I'll explain this in a second. If this works, then I think I know what was. Oh wait, no. Dot user creator. Oh wait, why is this error here? What is that? What was that? I'm not sure what that was. These are not defined. Line 5, where's that at? These are not defined by ID, right? Yeah. Oh, did I not use a wait somewhere? Because usually sometimes it does that. When you're grabbing data and you're using a sync await, you have to put await on data that you're trying to grab. Like for things like that and finding by ID, you gotta make sure you put await on all of those. That might have been it. Let me see. No. Now the user creator is not working. I think it started messing up when I did this. So let me see. Yeah, okay. So when I added the created notes, it started giving me problems, which I don't know why it would give me problems. But if I didn't fetch for, wait a minute. Now user creator works, but if I was to try to do created notes, let's see if that works. Oh yeah, it does. Oh, it does. So I didn't need to put that there? Hmm. I mean that works. I mean that makes sense because when you grab the user, you're gonna return the user data, which is the user creator. So the user creator basically is returning this data because we specified it here. Okay. So, but when we query for how are we getting? I'm curious to find out like how are we getting the created notes then, if that's the case. User creator. That's funny, but it works, so I'm not really complaining. Or wait, I might get the title for null. Yeah, okay, so it's not working. I figured so. Okay, so created notes, right? So when we return the user, we also want to return the created notes. Okay, that's the data that we want to get back as well. So we call the get notes function to return that data. And we pass in an ID, which is user spell user right, user dot underscore doc dot created notes, like that. And then we should get the user and the notes data. And that's inside the get user. Okay. So that by rights shouldn't have gave us an error unless I am doing something wrong. Which wouldn't be a surprise to me though. Make sure make sure everything else is functioning right. Same ID. D here. Let me place this in a different area here. Oh, see, wait, hold on. Oh, okay. After you save it, then return, then make the data with the objects in it. Oh, I think I missed a step here. Wait, or did I? I don't think I did on that part. Let's see if we're still getting an error. If so, then I'll come back and see if we did something wrong here. Okay, so let's see. Now the user's not defined again. Okay, so let's go here. So when we create a note and we get the notes back, we're also able to get, from the mutation point of view, we're also able to get the user that created it from the mutation part, okay? So we can say user creator, override the user creator field that's in our notes model, and then we're going to store the get user method, and then it's going to find the ID and do all the functionalities in the get user, but we have to pass in an ID, which is the result dot underscore doc dot user creator. Okay. Pretty sure that doesn't make a difference. User is not defined. We got that user in our notes, right? I mean, in our document. See, now I copied Jerry's, and then for some reason it showed me Michael's email, which was kind of weird because I know I copied it right. Okay, so let's run that again. Oh no, not that one. Alright, debugging time. User is not defined. Okay, so it messes up when I do, oh, I see where I messed up. I see it now. I'm saying user instead of user ID, because that's the one, right? Isn't it user ID? I swear to God, if that was the thing that messed it up, I'm gonna be pretty upset. So I didn't catch that. It's always a small little thing. I don't even know if that made it. Let's see. Oh, you son of a gun. That was my bad. I was so used to calling it just regular user. Okay, so it's working now. Oh God, that would have been a terrible. I just wasted so much time. Okay, sorry about that. So we did do it right. Okay, so when we for the user, we get the user document again. I want to say it as many times as I can so it can, kind of click. The user creator, all the data from the user creator is right here. And then we also return the data of the created notes, which is right here. So we're grabbing that data as well with using the get notes method to help us out getting that data. Okay. Now, on the created notes, it returns the notes, which is the created notes right here. It returns the data, which is the ID. Get that out of there. ID and stuff. This is the data, right? And then it also returns the user creator. So we can put that inside of our user creator like this and basically run it back again and get the user that created it, okay? So we can do, that's optional. We actually don't have to query that because we're querying it here anyway. So we don't have to go as deep as doing this. This is kind of like, this is more nesting that we need because our app is not that huge anyway. It's kind of like repeating data as well. So I might get rid of that. But just to show you, the email. This might take a minute because it's running this method. And I think that's why I was wondering why it takes forever, and I just realized that since these, when you query for this, you're actually querying, and then it's calling this method. So that's probably why it takes a while. If you were just querying for like the regular data, it wouldn't. But by this being a function, it's gonna like really be slow. But like again, I might just take that off because we don't have to keep nesting going deep like that. We got the point. um, see, it's being slow because it's calling that method. If it's slow like that, it might crash. So let's see. Try refreshing it. Sometimes it goes like slow like that, and it'll say fetching error occurred or fetching failed. But yeah, it'll return basically the same thing you return here. Okay. But yeah, while that's doing that very slow loading, if you run it, if you look at it from top to bottom, and you look at the code, it makes a lot more sense. Because the notes are the notes, and then what is the notes returning? It's returning the title, the content, and the image, which is the note doc, and it's also returning the user creator, and it's all within the notes. Okay. And then if you dive even deeper into the user creator, getting the data from the user creator, which is up here. Well, no, the user creator is calling this method, and then this method returns, is referring to this right here. It returns the document of the user, which is email, username, and password, right? Then it also nests or also grabs the user creator, created notes. The created notes along with it, which is right here, and then it returns that data, right? And it's specifying it here that it's returning that data here because you called it here. It's returning this data, and then it nests it again, also returning the user creator, which is this one, and then returning that data, which is this again. So it's like it's nesting. It's a lot of nesting. We don't need all that nesting. See, it's crashing now. See. Now if I was to like go off of it and then go back on it. Program probably failed. Oh no, it didn't. I'm surprised. Surprised it didn't throw an error in there. It's gonna take forever. Feel free to fast forward this until it actually comes up because it's acting like a jackrabbit right now. Let me try when I refresh this. Yeah, the methods on there is really making it it's really making it a bit slow. So I'm gonna keep the ones that we need on there, but I'm not gonna nest them deep because it's just, it doesn't even. Let me stop the server overall, and then it should be fine. Command C. Stop that bad boy. Clear that bad boy. Oh, sorry. Clear that bad boy, and then start that bad boy. Like that. First that again. Boom, we're back. Okay, so we're not going to do that again because it's going to freeze. But yeah, we get the gist, right? I'm not going to keep looping in through. Which one was it? I think it was this one. I'm not going to nest that. Now if we come back and we actually do need to nested query like that, then we'll come back and probably implement it. But right now we don't need all that nesting. We just need to get the user creator and its info and the created notes that's associated with the user creator and that info. We don't need to get all of that, okay? So I deleted that. These two, well, the user document, the created notes are the only things that we need. And this returns the notes of the created notes. Okay, so that's all we need there. I'm gonna stop this video. I know it's probably super duper long. Sorry about that. I had to do a little bit of debugging there, but it's all good. That's what you're gonna do in real life. So I'm not sure what the plan is for the next episode, but we got everything working, so that's a start. And yeah, we might do authentication, maybe, possibly. Yeah, that'll probably be the next thing, since we got all of our queries nested and good to go. We'll probably be set to do the authentication. We'll install bcrypt and all that stuff, getting the getting the password encrypted, I should say, and handling the use cases for the user, like checking the user and all that stuff. Login functionality, I forgot about that. Login functionality, making sure two users don't have the same email in the database, all that good stuff, all that checking. We'll get into all of that. And yeah, so stay tuned. If you want to stay tuned for this, go ahead and subscribe to it. Hit the bell notification so you can get notified. And I will see you guys in the next one. Hope you guys enjoy.